The trial of Ashley Benefield, it has come to a close with a manslaughter verdict. The jury had the option of second-degree murder, but they found her guilty on a lesser charge of manslaughter. It carries up to 30 years in prison. Joining me to discuss, Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent. Since we last talked, Ashley had a chance to let her words out in court, and we all got to see that very dramatic testimony. Since then, let me ask you, has it solidified your opinion on her guilt or innocence from prior to hearing her speak?
Yes, Tony, it really did. I just found her testimony to be very disingenuous. It seemed very much like acting when she got up and all the flailing
Hmm.
that she was doing. It just didn't come off as very believable. And I quite honestly think that this was a huge part of why the jury was swayed to go with a manslaughter charge and find her guilty.
It's interesting because I've talked to a lot of people, excuse me, and I'm finding that there's people who were very moved by her testimony, to the point of tears when it was happening. And then there's others who look at this and went, yeah, something feels a bit off here on this, and notably in the courtroom, and this was brought up obviously by the prosecution, the lack of tears. A lot of flailing, lots of moving around, but no tears. Tell me about that and what your experience is when somebody's trying to project their feelings of guilt or sadness or trauma, and there's no tears. Are tears always required for it to be authentic?
For me, I would say 99% of the time, yes. 99.9, let's make it that.
Hmm.
Tears come out even without emotional crying.
Hmm.
They're just a reaction of the body, and they're very authentic. And you didn't see that with her, and you really can't manufacture tears.
Hmm.
There's some sort of emotional response that just happened. In most cases, I'm not saying that there aren't
Sure.
some instances maybe where people have issues with their ducts or something and
Hmm.
can't
Yeah.
cry, but no, that was a big reason why, and it's something we really look for when we interview.
Hmm.
As an FBI agent, when you're sitting across from me, I'm looking for your reaction, and if it's something you should be upset about, and I don't see any tears, it gives me pause as to whether you're being honest.
What's disturbing about that whole idea of tears is the fact that one could shed not one tear, whether you did this on purpose or not, whether it was just in the heat of the moment. I felt like I had to do this. And maybe you look back on it and go, maybe that was kind of a brash decision. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it is what I did, and that's kind of the whole battered woman syndrome that was trying to be argued here. But one would almost think that you would have some level of empathy for what happened. This is, the father of your children that you shot, whether it was, over the top or not. You think there'd be something, wouldn't you?
That's how I always look at it. It never makes any sense to me in these relationships where people have that much hate,
Hmm.
that they totally disengage from the fact that at one point they actually loved that person, and that person, they decided to have a child with, and no matter what, that child that they have is half of another person.
Hmm.
And so I agree with you, Tony. It's really sad when you see that people lose
Yeah.
absolutely or have absolutely no empathy for the lost one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a certain level of numbness, but it also kind of makes you go, maybe that's why you were capable of doing such a thing. Let's take a look at some of that testimony from Ashley. And I want us to note while we're looking at this, the back and forth of how quickly she goes from hi, upset, but no tears, to just, oh yeah, that's how that all rolled out. It's a very, very stark contrast here. And if anyone who has kids, this is another thing I noted, especially if you have or have had a little girl. I know you have girls. I have a little girl. They, if they want something, they can turn this shit on and off sometimes. And this is kind of how I felt watching this testimony. Let's take a look.
You weren't concerned about him coming over.
I, no, I knew he was coming.
Okay. And when he came over, your mother and Emerson went to the park.
I believe they were headed there. I'm not sure. I think they were down the driveway or on the sidewalk, something like that. They were on their way there.
You weren't so afraid that you wanted your mother to stay there and watch.
No, we were just packing to move.
Okay, so you weren't afraid.
I definitely didn't expect this to happen.
So it was of you that your mother left.
Yeah, at that time.
Okay. So if I heard you right during your direct, you said he bumped your shoulder twice. Body check, I don't know if that's what you called it. He walked into you with a box, right?
Yes.
And then at the end, you say he slapped you?
He hit me. I don't. I wouldn't know how to classify it. He struck me. He hit me.
Was his hand open or closed?
I don't remember.
Okay. And because of those things, you claim that you thought he was going to kill you.
He had never hit me before.
Okay. And you thought he was going to kill you.
He wouldn't let me leave. I tried to leave. He stopped me.
The question is, you thought he was going to kill you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were in the bedroom, you decided to get your firearm. And it was where?
It was in a storage bin on top of the laundry basket.
Okay. So I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 52. If you could turn around and look at that. Where was your firearm?
It was in the bin on top of the basket.
Here?
That's the basket. The laundry
Where was the
basket.
bin?
It's that right on top.
Okay. So it was in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Why would you have a firearm in there?
I had just emptied all the furniture and everything out of my room, and it was kind of like what was left from my drawers, and so it got put into a bin.
Okay. And that was not your only firearm in that room, correct?
Correct.
You had a firearm in the closet.
My carry gun was in my backpack, which is my purse at the time.
So in this room, with a mattress and a broom and a hamper, you had 2 firearms.
Yes.
So you go into the room and you grab your firearm. Is it in a holster?
I don't remember.
Okay. And you claim that Doug does what?
He came and slammed the door open. He was standing in the doorway. He said, "You're fucking done."
He said, "You're fucking done." And that made you fear for your life.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be one to, downplay, someone who's been a victim of abuse of any sort. But I'm also going to raise my hand when I see something that doesn't feel right. And I'm sorry, that just it doesn't feel real. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with you. The way I don't know, there was one very specific moment
Hmm.
where she was kind of still sort of sobbing and kind of, and then a question is asked. She had to think about it, and then she went to her normal tone.
Hmm.
I don't know if you noticed that, and then
Yeah.
kind of digressed back to the. So that's just, I just didn't find her believable. It seemed very much like acting to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and I was thinking too, with a child in the house, of course I'm immediately going to the complete lack of gun safety.
Yes.
uh Locked and loaded 45 plus another gun, and nothing else in the house, as she said, on a laundry basket. It just, the whole scenario just didn't sound right.
One of the first things that I noticed in her cross examination of the testimony of Ashley Benefield was exactly the comment about the gun. There's a lot of things to note there, but saying, oh, yeah, the loaded 45 sitting on the laundry basket. You have a little kid in this house. Whose was just setting the gun within reach of the child. I don't care about Doug. I don't care about what the hell? What the hell is that all about?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That jumped off the page to me as
Yeah.
well. Also, I thought it was very interesting what the 45 was loaded with. It was loaded with jacketed halopoints. Now, halopoints are meant to expand in the
Yeah.
body. Many of them are illegal
Mhm.
to purchase, and they are absolutely meant to cause the most internal damage possible. So
Mhm.
she's got the biggest round there is, and it's a halopointed round. All very interesting, right there, accessible on the laundry basket.
Yeah, that to me was number one on gun safety, very disturbing. And then that's another very interesting point that you just made there. Another thing that I did find odd about this, um, and again, I'm coming to this from two places, just for people to listen to my perspective for a second. So they're not like, you're an asshole. You don't believe that I do believe victims. I've been a victim myself of domestic abuse. Uh, Luckily, I wasn't shot, but I've been in a situation where somebody had a weapon, and I've seen them also recount things, and I've seen them turn this on and turn this off, where it really made zero to no sense other than just I want to be the victim in a situation. Um, the the I don't remember. I don't remember if he slapped me or if he hit me. Uh, Again, I've been assaulted in a situation with somebody with a weapon, um, and I remember how I was assaulted. I remember exactly what they did. That doesn't go away. It's the same where she had the mix up recently in another account of I don't remember exactly what took place, if he took the gun out of his boot or if he took it out of his waistband. She mixed that up. And she's saying, I don't remember. I'm wondering, do you not remember how you testified about this to other people in the past? So you don't want to mix that up? Or do you literally not remember the incident itself?
Well, there were so many I don't remembers,
Mm-hmm.
that's when there's an issue, right? It makes sense to me that somebody recounting something that's very traumatic and emotional will forget certain things. They get tunnel vision, they're only remembering one part versus another. But this would have been really the onslaught of the whole situation if we're to
Yeah.
believe her, right? The initial slap or strike or punch or blow.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see is somebody that is sort of in with that particular question, they haven't really thought out the scenario fully.
Mm-hmm.
She's committed herself to now this is the first time he ever hit her, and that's what propelled her into taking, a deadly violence action. But then she continues with these I don't remembers, I don't remembers. When I hear that with somebody I'm interviewing, it to me is because they have not formed the lie yet, or they're confused about other
Yeah.
times they've recounted this situation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very easy to get away with it saying, get away with being pinned down when you say, I don't remember. If there were one or two, I understand. But over and over again, that's what that tells me.
She didn't remember a lot, and I get trauma is hard, but for the love, there's just certain things you don't forget, especially in a case like this. You imagine you've run this through your mind 1,000 times, and you're not like, oh, I just thought of that. I don't remember what happened. I don't buy it. I just don't buy that she doesn't remember. I believe she doesn't remember what she's told other people. I think because you start lying, and in one place she said this, and in one place she says that, and she's going to get nailed for being contradictory. And if you say, I don't remember, it sounds like you're saying, I don't remember the incident. But I really think it's, I don't remember what I've said in the past to people. That's where the confusion comes in.
Right, the details, it's always so simple. I have this saying, the truth never changes,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
lies are hard to track.
that's
Because
true.
you get confused. What did I say? Because you're making it up and you've recounted it on so many occasions. But the truth never changes. It's always very easy for people to remember the truth.
Hmm.
And like I said, there might be certain lapses when you're talking about a traumatic
Hmm.
situation, but it always stays consistent
Yeah. No,
if it's truthful.
I agree. And I'm not saying Doug was any angel here either. I don't think he was. I think these were both two toxic people in a very toxic relationship that did not mesh well together at all. Let's take a look at some of the closing arguments here from the defense of Ashley Benefield and the story that they're arguing as to why she had battered woman syndrome and why may not have necessarily been justified by an outside view, but in her mindset, this was the only option. Let's take a look.
Doug Benefield shoots a gun into the ceiling of their kitchen to intimidate Ashley to stop speaking, throwing a loaded gun at Ashley Benefield, threatening suicide, punching the dog so hard that he knocked the dog unconscious, threw the cat down the stairs, put a tracker on her car. The neighbor catches him in the yard at night, cursing, yelling, screaming, belittling. Text messages, I'm in a murderous mood. I want to rid the earth of them. Take them out. That was about two guys having a conversation while Ashley was on a cruise. Doug Benefield was so demented that just hearing in the background two men speaking while Ashley was on a cruise makes him say he wants to take them out, rid the earth of them. That puts him in a murderous mood. How about driving from South Carolina to Florida so that you could follow Ashley in the car? I mean, if that's not determination, what is? If that's not fixation, what is? If that's not obsession, what is? And most chilling, I thought, was Mr. Vincicaro, the realtor, who, while the injunction is in effect from South Carolina, look at the email between Doug Benefield and Vince Vincicaro. I asked him, did you have any dealings with Douglas Benefield? Yes, I did. What was it? He was a customer looking to buy a home. Where was that home? It was the house immediately behind Ashley Benefield's house. This is sick, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, again, I don't think Doug was a great guy. I think Doug had a lot of issues, a lot of jealousy issues, a lot of anger and rage issues. I think there's plenty of evidence for that, especially the email or text that she found from the ex-wife talking about him kicking her on the honeymoon when he basically couldn't get it up and had to use Viagra and took it out on her. I believe there's probably verbal abuse, but she flat out said, Ashley said, there was never any physical abuse whatsoever. Not to say that there couldn't have been mental or emotional by any means, but I mean, and some of those things were in that he was listing were really just he said, she said. There wasn't a lot of evidence behind everything that was listed. A couple things did, but not all of it. Is this an issue? And some of it was it Ashley thinking that he was more so like stalking her or going or trying to be down there with her, making it about herself when he was really just trying to be close so he could have a relationship with his daughter, which she was preventing, which no court ever said you can't have a relationship with a daughter. She was willingly and manipulating and to keep him away. I mean, this could have been a dad that just wanted to be near his kid.
Well, this is not unusual at all
Yeah.
for the other parent, especially if you're co-parenting, to want to be in close proximity.
Yeah.
So, not for stalking, but because you want to make it as convenient as possible to see your child and your child to see you.
Hmm.
So, I think this made sense. The other question I had, or statement, after he reads off all these things, I just want to ask one question. Then why in the world did you have him over to help you move?
Yes. If he's that dangerous, you're that afraid of him. Why is he showing up? Why are you ever manipulating him to come by?
Exactly. I mean, that's obviously why, more, the charge of second degree was initially charged. I think truly in that jury room, and maybe we'll hear from some of the jurors. I have not heard anything from them yet. But maybe this was kind of what they reached as an agreement,
Hmm.
right? No, they couldn't 100% agree with the other in light of some of these other domestic violence concerns, in light of the fact that Doug isn't the best guy, and so, for that reason, they agreed on the manslaughter.
Yeah, it's a case that I've been back and forth on after seeing her testimony the other day where she was hysterical. But then hearing from within the courtroom that there were no tears. We can only tell so much, even though we're watching this in high definition, back here. You still can't quite see tears perfectly. So I was wondering, are there tears going on here? But apparently there was not tears going on there. In fact, it even took a little while to even get a tissue. Like someone had to be like, here, you want one? After a little while, she didn't even go grab for them when they were right there. It was kind of a prompted, oh yeah, I need to do this. And I caution anybody who's like, well, tears don't mean everything. Really? Because we were arguing the exact same thing in the Alec Murdaugh trial in Snotfest of that. This was kind of, it felt like in a similar way. Instead of snot flying out of her nose, she knew how to go into hysterics and turn it off very quickly. Never coming, came back into the courtroom after taking that break. No eyes puffy, no face kind of swollen. I don't know anyone who's been through that level of hysterics that wouldn't have something going on. Red eyes at the very least. Makeup can cover a lot of things, but not that.
Right. Yeah. It just seemed like a performance, as I mentioned. And the other thing was, I really enjoyed the medical examiner's testimony.
Hmm.
It's been difficult to listen to the medical examiner in the Karen Reed case. So this was so refreshing to have
Yeah.
somebody actually have an opinion based on scientific evidence and from their experience. And the bottom line is he was shot in the back of the calf.
Hmm.
How did it get to the back of the calf? He was shot in the side, really, of the nipple going, to the back.
Hmm.
So essentially, it wasn't front. It was really side
Yeah.
and the back of that calf. And I am just not buying. I really believe, just personally, that that was the first shot. And it makes sense to me, just from a firearms instructor standpoint, that somebody that doesn't shoot all the time, one of the biggest problems they have is they anticipate that bullet and it goes low. Goes lower than they meant, and they readjust, and then it goes higher. And I think that's on the turn as he turns,
Hmm.
and then of course she misses two other, grazes the arm and then misses the other shot. But that's important information too. I think that it just didn't really match up when she tried to explain everything. She kind of went into that flailing hysterica
Hmm.
or hysterical state and never really could get out what happened.
Let me ask you one more question about it, the story, because I always found this part to be overly dramatic. I guess it's not impossible, but it was the cartoon moment of what happened. He fell down and his legs went flying up in the air. I know the prosecution argued that too, of like, how does that even happen unless he's like tripping over something? It's almost, I mean, it's like a cartoon moment to think that that would happen. Is that an insane thing to say? Could that have actually happened, or was that added for dramatic effect?
Well, the medical examiner said something very interesting, and that was that, of course, the chest shot was the one that killed him, the
Hmm.
fatal shot. But he could not testify as to how quick it was. In other words, was it just instantaneous, almost that he fell and then ended up die? How long it took, I shouldn't say to die, but to incapacitate,
Hmm.
where he couldn't further move. So if you keep that in mind, I think it could make sense. And then also we know he had a very serious injury to the head, right? Which the ME said likely where he struck something on the back of his head. So I can sort of see on that side shot him falling back, striking his head, and because of that, the feet sort of being lifted.
Hmm.
I don't think it was to the cartoon fashion that it was sort of painted,
Yeah.
but I can see the legs sort of lifting up as he was whiplashed back,
Hmm.
as he fell.
Well, it's fascinating. The jury came back. I got to say on this one, I think it was pretty, I think it was a good decision. I think it was one of those, almost like we were thinking with Karen Reed too, where there's a level here where I do understand, because I do think there's something going on. My conjecture is that she has a personality disorder of some sort, combined with some abuse that she's dealing with. But at the same point, you combine all that together, you can create very poor judgment. I'm not saying that she couldn't have truly felt like she was in the level of danger that she was in, but I think she was trying to walk her way out of it too much for something that really didn't need to happen. And there was a lot of manipulation prior to the actual shooting itself. So I'm going to say bravo to the jury on this verdict. What's your thought on how it came back in?
I agree. I think this was appropriate. I don't think they were able to truly prove second degree beyond a reasonable doubt, but
Hmm.
clearly the manslaughter just jumped off the page of, of guilt in that regard, I believe. But to say it was to a greater degree, I just don't think, because of there was some abuse, I think, that
Yeah,
existed here.
yeah.
And in her mind, how are we to say that 100% she didn't feel threatened?
Hmm.
I might not buy how she presented it on the stand, but all of her actions seem very concerning. I do find it, to me, the biggest fact that the prosecution had was that she invited him there.
Yeah.
So that totally goes against truly the fear. But then what happened once inside of there? So I think this was such a great verdict. It's 30 years that she's facing. I know it's not life like a lot of people would love to see her go, because Doug's gone. Doug's
Yeah.
gone forever, not to enjoy anything else in his life.
Hmm.
And but I think this was a just verdict.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.